But yeah, Chill, we were just talking about Jordans. I asked Jay if he was a sneakerhead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did I miss that? He's got like
Yes.
40 pairs of Jordans, that guy.
You should do a tour.
Oh,
I wanna
what
see
you
which
call it?
ones you have.
I'm I seen your page. What I'll do is I'll tag you when I first got on TikTok, I'll tag you with
Old
a
video.
tour of my J's. Like I said, I'm a 60s and 13s guy. I got a pair of ones. I got a pair of fours. I used to have a pair of threes, but
Okay.
for the most part, I'm 60s and 13s.
Okay.
I want to. I keep telling myself this because it makes me feel better. I gave away tons of pairs of shoes because we get shoes right when we play,
Mm-hmm.
and so all through kind of the tail end of high school and university, I had all these shoes, and so I wanted to do something charitable. So this is why I say I feel good about it, but it's still kind of, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have kept
No,
those
is
ones.
that you?
I took a bag to, like, there was these like the Boys and Girls Clubs, because I was in the US. There's a lot of Boys and Girls Clubs of America that just, there's all these kids, they're like 10, 12 with size 13s, and they're like, they got duct tape holding their shoes together. So I donated these shoes to these kids.
Yeah.
And so I feel good
Aw.
about it, but at the same time, like, I was like, oh, I wish I would have kept those threes. Oh, I wish I would have kept those.
Yeah.
I wish I would have kept those, because that, we didn't know back then that they were.
Can I have those back, please?
Yeah, I was like, can I get those back in a minute? Or at least give me your name, so in case you ever hit it big, like, we can
Remember me.
we can have a chat. Yeah, I didn't do any of that. So I know we're supposed to talk, we got a lot of basketball on the docket, got a lot of football on the docket.
Yeah.
Actually, a little bit of football on the docket. But I just saw something, it was just sent to me, and I don't know where you stand on this, Haley, but I gotta ask Jay, and I want your opinion too, because I don't know what your musical interests are. Rolling Stone just released that the greatest album of all time. Let me make sure I give the title correctly here, so I don't want to misrepresent Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone just named Ready to Die the greatest hip hop album of all time.
That is not that is not ridiculous to say that. No, it is not at all. In fact, I think that I will agree with that. When I think about great albums, Reasonable Doubt, Illmatic, any of let's see, Eminem's albums, the Eminem Show, Drake. Let's see, Take Care. But when I think about Ready to Die was just so ahead of itself. Man, we're talking about 13 tracks where there was no skips, none whatsoever were there any skips. And Big had a flow, and Big's rhyme style was like something. That's what made Big so much better than everybody else. Number one, he didn't sound like anybody. That's number one. That's the first part of that made Big so much better than everybody else. He didn't sound like anybody. And on top of the fact that he didn't sound like anybody, his rhymes was just so dope. I'm thinking about the best MCs and their rhyme style, and their not just their rhyme style and their cadence, but the rhymes that they were saying. I mean, this dude made a song about killing himself because he was fed up with who he was. Right? He was fed up with who he was, and it was one of the slickest lines that I ever heard when he said, call my big cheek, tell him that my will is weak. I'm sick of lying, I'm sick of talking. Matter of fact, I'm sick of talking. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute, Big, don't go yet. Oh, Big was incredible, man. Big was absolutely incredible, no question about it. And he was definitely my favorite MC, the best that I'd ever heard, no doubt about it. And that album was great from top to bottom.
So I'm torn, because I can see the logic. Like, I'm not going to argue that it's not. But I mean, growing up, I was out. For me, my GOAT, I guess, is still Rakim, right? Just Paid in Full. That's just, for me, that's the album. Illmatic, you mentioned. Ready to Die, of course. It's a toss-up for me, actually, with like All Eyes on Me and Tupacalypse. I was also a big Pac fan, having spent time on the West Coast, so I got that West Coast kind of thing going too. And I'm like, man, there's so many great albums. I think someone asked me like, do your top 10. And I go, I just did 10 and I think I missed 20. It was so hard. Like I had that post and there was a big, like I did it on TikTok. I said, here's my 10 from the East. Here's my 10 from the West. Oh wait, here's my 10 from the South, because I'm a big fan of like Goody Mob and Outkast. And like, there's so many different like types of hip hop. And then I also say one of the ones that no one ever brings up, but I gotta tell you, man, in like, I want to say 88, 89, I know when Haley was born, not even close. LL Cool J for me, right? When he dropped, when I heard My Radio, I forgot about all other music. And I'm like, I love hip hop. Like, that's it. Like, I don't even, and I worked in I'm also going to date myself. I worked in a record store. So I have this like huge, like when we talk music, I got a massive array of likes from like I said, in the record store, we had to play rock, country, classical, like you name it. Like I've been listening to Dean Martin, Patsy Cline, Ghostface Killer, Tupac, what's his name, Kane Brown. Like I've got, now that's recent, but Dwight Yoakam. Like I've got the mix. But I mean, I heard My Radio. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. So
Haley,
his name never gets me.
Just so you know, Haley, there was a time when you could go into a record store, you could listen to the record before you bought it.
Yeah,
it wasn't just you just heard one song. No, you could actually listen to the album and go, I want this. I know that sounds nuts today.
I know.
Yeah,
wow. No, we actually we have a record player.
You have a record player? That's
we do. Yeah, we have a record player.
There's something about that,
like Wiz, Eminem.
That sound when the needle hits the record. And
special.
I was gonna say the best thing about working at the record store was that we could play. We had to play music all the time. So it would just be like a different person, and we all had kind of different interests. We would play what we wanted, and so you hear all these different things, and you're just like, I'm kind of feeling that. Like I never would have thought I'd like that, but maybe not the whole album. But there's a couple songs like, okay, I could get with that. So, anyways, I wanted to get your opinion, Haley. How you feel about? I don't know if that's your cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely heard the album, and I like him. I don't know if I'm equipped on all the music at that time to say that's like the best overall. What year did that come out again?
September 13th, 1994.
There you go.
Wow. Yeah, so that's before I was even born, which is crazy to think.
You're gonna get fired here in a minute if you keep bringing.
Do you have a favorite album of all time, Haley? Like one album that you can listen to on loop?
It doesn't have to be your favorite, but like you said, one that you could just, if it's on, you're gonna listen to the whole thing. You're not.
I don't even know. I love Lil Wayne. I really do.
Lil Wayne
and
is
I love.
dope.
Yeah,
yes,
I do. I guess Mirrors, is that his? Or I also like Kanye a lot, but I don't even know who my favorite rapper of all time is. It's not Drake, that's for sure. Like I enjoy Drake's music a lot. I do. I really do. But I think there's just some, and like his earlier albums were lyrically beautiful, but I heard somebody the other day, one of my coworkers, we were talking about, I just like to listen to the music. I don't want to have to think about it. And for me, I'm the opposite. Like I want those lyrical, in-depth moments, because that's how you connect with it and that's how you feel it. So
see, I'm with you. And then I started listening. I was in my car, I was on a long road trip, and I started listening to some of them, and I'm like, oh, that's not very good. And then there was other ones where I'm like, oh, that's very inappropriate. Like, but
see, Tone, that's what makes the music great, because you gotta sit down and listen to it. Where you go, you know what, this is whack.
But let me just tell you, when you hear, you'll know the song once I say, when you hear Backstage Underage Adolescent, I'm like, whoa, hold on now.
Yeah, but they're telling stories. So
I know,
the line was so like, slick. The line was so slick that it just went right over your head until you actually later on sat down and was like,
because I didn't
say
care.
that again, what you just said.
See, that's what I'm saying. During that time, I was like, Haley, I just listened to the music and I didn't care. And now as I got older, I'm like, what did they just say? Oh,
yeah, you're like, okay, that's why
some were good, some
but that was going on though too, Tone. Don't remember.
I know.
We're talking about a BBD group that was a big deal, so they had that kind of audience going on back then. So
hey, listen, I am a new addition Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, Ralph, Johnny, Bobby, like all of them. I was all in on New Edition right through to every single solo album. Like I said, like anyone can challenge me. The fact that I can sing not sing, but I know the words to every Ralph Tresvant song and rap by heart. That's not that. I shouldn't even admit that. But can we talk sports? Because I want to get out of this one. Because someone's gonna ask me to say something or sing something that I'm horrible.
Yeah, moving on. Although everybody in the chat was saying Jay-Z, so he got
yeah.
Obviously.
There's so many. That's what I'm saying. There's so many.
Shout out to Jay-Z. Yeah. But moving on to the sports side of things. I mean, I do think we should definitely tackle NFL, no pun intended, a little bit later on, because we are finishing up the NBA season. But as we usually do, I think we should touch on kind of the last two games. I don't think we've talked since we both game 1 and game 2 came on. So
you mean since I picked the winner of game 1 correctly?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, Chill, you were right about game 1. We'll give you your props for that. That was impressive. I didn't even see that coming. But yeah, if you want to kind of give us your reasoning why you picked them and where do you see game 3 going?
Tone was the one who picked Boston. Tone was the one who picked Warriors.
Oh yeah.
I picked Boston.
Tone was the one who picked Boston. So it was Tone. So,
you're right.
Yeah.
Trying to take away my big win. Listen, the reason I picked Boston is Boston is that type of team that I felt like they were coming in off a high, right? Game 7, they beat Miami. I don't think rust is a thing, but the Warriors are sitting around, they're waiting. So I think the Celtics intensity level was just higher. So I thought they could go into Golden State and just ride that wave of kind of emotion and win. And that's why we didn't unfortunately get to the show, but that's why I picked the Warriors to win game 2. Cause I thought, okay, that high is going to now drip off a bit. And that's my problem with Boston is they're not consistent. They haven't been after almost every win this playoff. They've come back, and especially Tatum, he does not play well after a win. And actually, that's your guy. Why is that? Why does he not do that after a win?
Well, because we're still trying to figure it out, Tone. What we are wrapped up in is we're wrapped up in a Jason Tatum who's in the NBA Finals, and we want him to be that guy, not realizing that, number one, he's in year 5. That's number one. Number 2, he's 24 years old, and he's the guy. We haven't had many guys who are that young as the guy on this stage and performing at that level where they're that guy right now. He's still trying to figure it out. The in-between part of his game hasn't materialized yet. The game hasn't slowed down for him just yet. And I think that the Warriors did a really good job of throwing different looks at him. One of the things that they did that I wasn't really impressed with nobody really talks about is I thought one of the things that they did was the same thing that Milwaukee did with Phoenix last year, where Gary Payton II started picking him up. Gary Payton II started picking up Jason Tatum full court. Well, they made him the primary ball handler, so he's picking him up full court, and he's slowing down their offense. Well, how is he slowing down their offense? He's slowing down their offense by speeding Jason Tatum up and forcing Jason Tatum into turnovers. And because he's doing that, that's completely screwing them up, because a lot of those guys, they play off of Jason Tatum. And when Gary Payton does that, he makes their offense less efficient. So I thought that was really good. But the problem that we have in Tone is that we expect this. He's basically in an accelerated process right now. Now they're in the NBA Finals. You said it to me yourself. Where do you have Boston this year?
I did not have them in the NBA Final.
You thought they were a year away.
I thought they were a year away. Yeah,
absolutely. Right. So
I said that.
So with that being said, this is what we have now. Now you've thrown him into an accelerated class now where, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting this guy till next year, maybe even a year after that. Now we're here and I expect him to perform like I would expect him to perform next year or 2 years from now. Well, we're not there yet. He's still materializing. So that's why you see the inconsistencies that you see.
Well, Jay, let me ask you this, because we know half the battle is physical and what you do on the court, and half the battle is mentality. And we know all the greats, MJ and LeBron, and all these guys were so mentally tough. How, and I know we don't know Jason personally. We can't know for sure, but how do you feel that mental toughness is for him? And do you think that that's going to affect the finals and their progress throughout the finals?
I don't think that it's going to affect his progress because, again, we've seen a guy, they went into Miami in 1 Game 7. I mean, I don't know how much mentally tougher you have to be to do that. They came back from being down 3-2 to the Milwaukee Bucks. He could have folded. So instead, he goes into Milwaukee and puts 46 on them in an elimination game. So it's obvious that the mental toughness is there. It's just now putting it all together. It's what I equated to, Tone, is I equated to you got a meal and you're putting the ingredients in it, but you're rushing. You put in this with this, and this is not ready yet, but you still have to cook this. And that's kind of how I see Jason Tatum. We're kind of, I think he's just in an accelerated process that we want to see him get to when he's not there yet, but he's going to be there. He's absolutely going to be there.
So the inconsistencies are kind of just, that comes with age and maturity.
That's all.
In the game.
Well, listen, that's why I kept telling Jay, I think they're a year away. Because I think Jason Tatum needed a playoff run. Now, they exceeded expectations and made it to the final, but he needed a playoff run to see, like, here's the thing about the playoffs. When you go from the regular season to the playoffs, there is a big learning curve from that first round. Right. And then people don't realize, because people, you know, you and I talk about this, the game slows down, defense tightens up. What we don't talk about, though, is from the regular season to the playoffs that happens, but also from round 1 to round 2 it happens. Because guess what? The team in round 2 is guaranteed they're better than the team you played in round 1.
Significantly better.
So the team that you play in round 3, right? Like, who's the best team that Boston has faced this playoff? Oh, they're playing them right now. It's the Warriors. So each round gets harder. So when we say the game slows down, defense gets tighter, shots, the rim becomes a little bit smaller. Like, that is every round. It happens a little bit. Now, regular season, like I said, to the playoff is the biggest. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen in every round. So that's why I was like, it'd be good for Tatum and Brown to get a run in, right? Get their lumps. And that's why. And then now that they're here, I'm like, well, they're here. Why not win? Why not go out and win it?
Right.
So, and listen, they did their job. They split in San Francisco and Golden State, whatever. They split. That's all you want them. That's what you want to do. We say the series doesn't start till a road team wins. Well, series has started.
Yes, it has.
And
also,
go ahead.
Also, too, I think that the Boston Celtics in that game 1, I think they out-warriored the Warriors. I mean, I said this earlier. So they basically did everything that the Warriors do, only except we're going to do it better than you guys, with the exception of that third quarter, which we should all be understanding of who the Golden State Warriors are by now, right? Isn't this something that we shouldn't be surprised about? I mean, in these last 2 games, I think the Golden State Warriors, I think they outscored Boston 74-38 or something like that, just in the third quarter alone. We know who the Warriors are after halftime. It's like it's a storm where Mike Tyson knocks you down. So if you get saved by the bell, when you come out in that next round, here he comes. So you better be ready. Well, that's kind of the logic with the Golden State Warriors in that third quarter. So the barrage is coming. And if you can handle it and continue to just hang around, which is what Boston did in that game 1. I mean, 12 points in the NBA is not a lot to cover. It's not like they were down 28 like they were in game 2 when they basically just dump trucked them. They're down 12 points. And you can make a couple of shots and get yourself back in the game. They basically out-warriored the Warriors in that game 1. Now, the problem that I'm having in game 2 is Boston got out Boston. They got out tough. That's basically what that was. And I stand on this tone, and it gets my blood pressure up. Before we are basketball players or football players or baseball, before you are any of those things, you are a man. And there are certain things that you do not have to take. So that pushing and that shoving from Draymond Green, I don't have to take that from him. So if he's going to push, it's okay for you to push back. If he wants to get in your face, get back in his face, because you don't have to take that as long as it doesn't affect your game. One of the things that I dug about your Lakers, Tone, was when Boston pushed, that was one of the maturation processes of Magic Johnson. When Boston pushed, he had to push back. And once you push back and you show that tactic isn't going to work, the Bulls in the 90s, once they realized that, once the Pistons realized we can't push these guys around, we're going to have to play. That's when you saw the separation in the skills. Well, the same thing is going on with this Boston Celtic team. When these guys, Draymond Green in particular, when he gives it to you, give it back. Do not let him off the hook and just let him push you around. Because once he does that, that fuels his game and it takes away from who you guys are. So if these guys are pushing, push back and do not let that affect your game. I had a problem with that.
It's interesting because I really saw Grant Williams. Sorry to interrupt you, Fluent.
No, go ahead.
I really saw Grant Williams doing more, especially against Draymond. I don't know why. I don't know. I feel like he's gonna have a game in game 3 or 4. I really see him doing a lot more than he has been doing, because he can match that energy that Draymond brings and that physicality. Right. But you're 100% right. Once you feel Draymond, you feel the entire team, and we saw that. I did want to touch on the comment from Roddy Ice. Klay is underperforming heavily, which everyone's going on and on about their point of view. But what do you guys?
Go ahead, Tone. I already know where you're going, Tone. Yeah. Get him. I already know where you're about to go, Tone.
When you say Klay is underperforming, my man hasn't played for 2 years.
That's number one.
He's playing on one leg, right? Like give him he's underperforming compared to what? Compared to how Klay has played, compared to what you saw him in this season, compared to what your expectations are. He's playing, I think, what I thought he was going to give you. Right. He's also in a position where Curry, Poole, Wiggins, there's a lot of mouths to feed right now. Right. In that first run, when it was just him, Dre, and Steph, well, there was only 2 mouths to feed, him and Curry. In the next one, it was KD, Curry, and him. In this one, he's got multiple mouths to feed. So I'm dealing with a guy who hasn't played in 2 years. Like I said, who's playing, he's not at 100%. And so I don't think he's underperforming. I think he's not performing to what we're used to seeing pre-injury. But for me, he's playing as I expected him to play.
Well, also too, Tone, don't leave out the fact that not only did he play, not only is he 3 months removed from not playing for 2 years, last I checked, he's going up against the number 1 defense in the league. So that's also a problem. So in addition to me not being accustomed to the NBA, to the speed of the game, or me just getting back involved in the game from being out for 2 years, I now have to go up against the number 1 defense in the league. I thought that this season for Klay was going to be a season where he just proves that I can hold up. I think that next season was the year where he gets back to being elite. The idea that Klay is underperforming, no, he's not underperforming. He's going up against the best defense in the league. I do expect him to be better, but I'm not shocked at what's going on with him because he didn't do that well against Memphis. He wasn't playing great against Denver. And he also didn't play great against Dallas. So this isn't a situation where Klay is just underperforming. No. He's still working his way back into being Klay Thompson.
I think Klay's role right now is very different than it was. Klay is he's like a decoy who you don't want him to go off because he will have a game at every series, right? He'll go off. He still has that ability to shoot that hasn't gone anywhere. So I think it's more of, hey, Klay's going to give us something. Klay's going to keep the defenses honest, right? They won't be able to cheat off Klay because if they do, he'll burn us. So you still got so again, all of those things, right? Just coming back, the number 1 defense. He's not where I think you and I had this conversation at the beginning of the season when Klay was, we were talking about him coming back, and it was like we even said the Warriors Klay is a year away from being the Klay that he was before, if he ever will be. Like, injuries are very different for everybody. So I wouldn't put it so much on Klay. Again, for me, he's playing as expected.
I
want to go back a step though, because I wanted to say something about I was gonna say, I don't know if this makes me a good or a terrible parent, but like man, woman, or child, like I tell my daughter who's 8, if someone pushes you, don't go pushing people around. Don't go hitting people. If someone pushes you, push them back.
You
push them back because then they'll stop.
100%.
Right. So when you say like Dre's pushing, push him back. Push him back. What's he gonna do?
Well,
now granted, you'll probably get the foul for retaliation, but at least they'll know. Like, I think the big, you mentioned the Lakers. The Lakers were getting destroyed. I mean, like physically beaten in Boston, and the refs blind eyes, right? And then they started hitting back, and it was like, oh, the Lakers, they're playing so dirty. No, they're just doing the same thing back to you, and that's when the Celtics went, okay, now we can't push them around. I remember seeing Jordan and Pippen come back from losing to Detroit, from I think 90 to 91, and you could see there was a difference in their shoulders, in their arms, like they'd been hit in the gym, and it was Pippen, I remember, who just like Bill Laimbeer fouled him, and he just got up and just like pushed him like I've never seen him do before. And I'm telling you, I didn't see it. I wasn't there, like, but I was watching it on TV. But I was saying, I feel like if you were there, you probably saw Bill Laimbeer go, oh, right. There was that moment, and I think that's what every team needs when there's that kind of that toughness. And Draymond Green, that's his job. He's doing his job, so good for him. But that's what they need to do. That's where you're going to see that star Tatum, that star Jaylen Brown become superstars. Right. Is when they say, I'm better than you. I'm not going to let you outwork or out physical me. And if you can't outwork me and out physical me, I'm more talented. You're done. And that's when they take that step.
Add that to the fact, Tone, that when you dealing with guys like Draymond Green, who are disruptors, who are irritants and things like that, I mean, they know who to do that with. I mean, I remember the 2016 NBA Finals. And I remember vividly, Draymond Green does not get in Tristan Thompson's face because Tristan Thompson is not with that. He knows that he's not going to be able to push him around. I don't know who you're used to dealing with, but you better take that somewhere else because it's not over here. I can tell you that right now. Horace Grant was one of my favorite players because Horace Grant would not allow Xavier McDaniel to push him around. And that would be the difference in the series, because once you stand up to the bully, what happens is now we have to play basketball. Once you stand up to the bully, now we have to fight. One of the things about standing up to the bullies is they're not prepared to fight. What they're prepared for is they're prepared for you to roll over. And once you don't roll over, now that means we have to fight. And I'm not really prepared to do that. That's why you see them wither like they do. So the same idea with Draymond Green. Do I think Draymond's a bully? No, but I do think he's an irritant, and I do think that he's a disruptor, and he knows who to do it with, and he knows who to do it against. And his target is Grant Williams because he thinks he can disrupt what they're doing because Grant Williams is a big part of what they're doing. Once Grant Williams realizes that I'm going to push back and not let that disrupt our game and what we're doing, you're going to see a difference.
It's funny. I have a friend who's an MMA fighter, and he always says to me, like, we have these conversations, debates, whatever, and he always used to say to me, the guy who's the loudest, who's like pushing people around, don't worry as much about them. It's the one that's sitting there quiet. That's the one you got to worry about, because that's the one who, when you push them, you're going to regret it. So, and I'm not saying, that's Draymond Green. Like, Draymond Green knows his importance to that team. He doesn't want to get into a fight and get, suspended. We know what happened when he did, right? But he wants to get in your head so that what you're worried about is Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman didn't want to fight Karl Malone in the finals, but boy, did he get into his head. Then Karl Malone became so worried about getting tangled up with Rodman, right? He forgot to play basketball, which is exactly what they wanted to do. You can't let those guys trick you into doing that because they will. It's smart basketball. But you can't let them do it.
And what it also did was it took away from how good the Warriors were. We completely forgot how good the Warriors played in that game. And we got wrapped up in the antics of Draymond Green. We got wrapped up in what they were doing. And we completely forgot about the fact that, they outscored the Warriors. The Warriors outscored Boston by over 20 in the third quarter, completely blew the game open like I was talking about before. We know the barrage is coming. Add in that element of Draymond Green being the irritant and being the disruptor. And now we completely forget about Steph Curry going off. We completely forget about Klay starting to hit shots, Jordan Poole starting to hit shots, and those guys getting one off, completely just dominating these guys in the second half of that game. And that was largely due to them letting Draymond Green disrupt what they were doing. If you guys can get back to who you are, which is a hard-nosed, tough Boston unit, then I think you guys will be fine. I absolutely do.
And I don't know if either of you saw this interview. I think it was earlier today with Malika Andrews and Steph. But Malika was interviewing Steph and just asking about his emotions and all that right now. And Steph went on to say that he felt like he was still in his prime at 34. What do you guys think about that? How long would you give Steph left in the league? And do you think because of his size and the way he does play, could he be in the league for 5 or more years? Or are we looking at maybe a shorter term than that? He's just being confident because he's in the finals.
So,
listen, the way that he plays, and the fact that, let's be honest, the first couple of years he didn't really play a lot, right? Remember, we were worried about his ankles if he was even going to play at all. So I think he's going to be a very valuable player for at least 3 more years. Can he play another 5? Yeah, 100%. Because his role will always now. Will he be able to do all the same things? No. But he seems like he's, if you think about it, knock on wood, he's been relatively healthy for the vast majority of his career, right? So, yeah, I don't see why he couldn't play another 3 to 5 years, I think, for sure. At this level is the question. And I think 3, was he 34? So, yeah, can he play could he play to 39? Yes, but I think kind of 36, 37 might be maybe 3 more years max I think at this level. He doesn't look like he's slowing down, right? He does not look like he's slowing down. And just think about it. If he's 38, right, and playing a role like his dad used to play, okay, nothing wrong with that. As long as his ego which he seems to be that kind of guy that he won't let his ego get in the way. 100% he can play for 5 more years. Oh yeah.
This is exactly why I said that in my lifetime, I'm not going to see a guy crack 4,500 to 5,000 threes again. And the reason why I'm not going to see that is because Steph Curry, I think he's got 2 more years at this level before he starts slowing down. And then he's going to move into that Ray Allen role where he still could be a starter and he can just basically be a spot up shooter, get him a legit playmaker and shot creator where he can just hang behind the 3-point line and not be a liability defensively. And he's still going to be awesome. So I honestly, whenever I look at Steph Curry, barring any health issues, I think he's going to play another 4 or 5 years. But the thing is that we get wrapped up a lot in, and I hate to bring this up, but we get wrapped up a lot in LeBron James. And we see that the fact that LeBron James has played at such a high level for so long that we expect everybody to do that. But we forget that when guys start to approach their mid-30s, reality starts to set in that these guys are starting to slow down. But we don't want to accept that. And the reason why we don't want to accept that, because we're caught up in what they're doing right now. I mean, we caught up in the fact that Steph Curry last year finished in the top 3 in MVP votes. We're caught up in the fact that they're in the NBA Finals this year. So immediately the logic is going to be, this dude going to be doing this for the next 4 or 5 years, considering how this team is built. No, he's not.
He's not. And for like the love of God, please stop comparing humans to the LeBron James, Tom Brady, Nolan Ryans of the world, right? If you think about it, there's like 1 or 2 in every sport that defies logic. Yeah. Like, when if it was Men in Black, you'd like, oh, they're actually aliens. Oh, that makes sense, right? Like those people, like I said, Nolan Ryan, LeBron, Tom Brady. Tom Brady, people forget. Tom Brady's what, 44 years old? He finished second in the MVP voting last year.
I thought he should have won it.
And I actually picked him to win it too.
Yeah.
Those guys are exceptions. So when people say, the players today are bigger, stronger, faster, they, the health, they play longer. No, there's an exception to the rule that though don't judge humanity. Like, yes, if aliens came down, I'd say, yeah, look at these guys. But for the rest of us, no, those guys are the exception. You're not going to see it. Like, you're going to see a drop off from, and you do. James Harden. Now, granted, he's never a good. Look at his drop. He's not going to get better next year. I'm just telling you right now. Someone was asking me. He's not getting better next year.
Yeah, no, I think that's valid. It's sad too because he had points where he probably could have gotten himself back into shape and maybe done a little bit more, but at this point,
it's not just shape, Haley. You don't get this and you won't for about 30 years. It doesn't matter. Like when people say wear and tear, I had this talk, is playing 15 years and out of 20 more difficult than playing 20 out of 20? And I'm like, no, playing 15 out of 20 is harder than playing 20 out of 20, because as you age and your body, if you're not doing it every single day, your body gets stiffer, you lose flexibility, you're more susceptible to injury. Age is undefeated. That's the Gordie Howe was another one. I had to think of a hockey one. I didn't have a right. That just crazy. Just think about it. Tell me someone who played well into their played at a star level into their late 30s or 40s in any sport. The list is very, 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 and I'm talking all sports. Yes. It's very, very short. Like you can't even golf. Like even golfers, like they go to the senior tour. Like it's just, you can't, your body just can't do what it used to do. So yeah, again, I'm still gonna be happy. I'm still gonna be happy.
I wasn't ready to let Jay go, and it was clear that Jay was washed in 2003. Mike didn't have it anymore, but I wasn't ready to let him go, Tone. I wasn't ready to let him go yet. And it was obvious that Mike didn't have what he used to have. It was clear. But I still wasn't ready to let him go. I was like, Mike, can you give me one more year, Mike? I know you, but it was obvious that he couldn't.
But that's the thing though, right? Mike, Kareem, Ewing, actually every player, if you think about it, the game tells them when it's time for them to go, because they can't. Right? It's you know, I always remember seeing Patrick Ewing in I think it was an Orlando Magic jersey, right? Sean Kemp stretching out a Cavs jersey, among others. I think, Jay in Washington, like they're just it's hard to say, because I am old and I get a ball in my hand, okay, and my body still thinks I can do because my brain still thinks, hey, you can still do that because you know how to do it. And my body's just like, no, you can't. Right? You can't.
Not happening.
You try running, your body's like, what are you doing? Hey,
I give this example. My hands are still fast, right? So I'm playing in a game, and I get down low, which is actually impressive, to be honest. I get down low. I strip the ball. I take 2 dribbles, 2 long strides. I still got my long legs. I still got the height, right? And I'm at the basket thinking, okay, I'm going to go up. Now, probably not going to dunk it. I'll admit, I'm not going to dunk it anymore, but I'm going to lay it up. But my leg said, you're not jumping. And so it was just like this really weird layup where my feet were still on the ground. I'm putting it up off the back. And I'm like, how come my legs didn't? Like, I looked down. I couldn't slide a piece of paper under my feet. Yeah. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So, that's just, you got to live with it. You got to accept it. And next time I'm just going to pull up and shoot a 3.
To answer your question, Haley, I think Curry's going to be around at this level. I think 2 more years, and then I think he's going to segue into a Ray Allen type of role where he can play another 3 years, and then I think he still will be good after that. After these 2 years, I still think he'll be really good. That's why, like I said, I don't see in my lifetime somebody eclipsing what he's going to do in terms of the 3-point record. I'm looking at 45.
Oh yeah, that's going to last a long time.
I don't think that I'm going to be around to see somebody eclipse that. I don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think all the records, I feel like he breaks a record every single game he plays. It's going to be a long time before somebody can do that. But it's kind of segues into our football topics, because Tom Brady is kind of in the same position. Like, this man is a winner through and through. He is a winner, an incredible talent. But how do you guys feel about his kind of the same thing? Like, his body and I think his mind are telling him to do 2 different things. But when you're that elite of a athlete, like, you don't want to quit. Like, it's going to take something serious to maybe cause you to realize, okay, I'm done. And for Tom, like, I think mentally he decided, I'm done, for my family, for other reasons. But now we all know that he's back and unretired. So, Jay, what do you feel about Tom Brady? How do you think this next season is going to go? Do you think he will make it into the playoffs or even a championship, or is that ship sailed?
Well, most athletes will tell you, especially at the elite level, you do it until you can't do it anymore, because you don't want to leave anything on the table. That's number 1. Number 2, Tom Brady LeBron James, Nolan Ryan, Gordie Howe. These guys are the gift and the curse. Done is you expect Tom Brady goes out. For example, last season, there was a stretch where Tom Brady was on pace to throw for 7,500 yards and 55 touchdowns. That's the pace that he was on at that point. Now, this guy was 44 years old doing this. So now Tom Brady comes out of retirement, and not only does he come out of retirement, what happens to the Buccaneers? They go right back to the top of the NFC South, as opposed to we didn't know who was going to win the NFC South. And not only do they go right back to the top of the NFC South, they might even be the Super Bowl. They might be the NFC favorites, considering what happened last year against the Rams. They might very well be right back in it. So to look at a guy like Tom Brady, there's no reason for me to think that he can't do it. The only question that I have is he going to be able to hold up? Because football is a little bit different than basketball or baseball, where it only takes one good hit to basically end you. Tom's been smart. Tom Brady has been smart enough in his career and lucky enough also in his career that he's been able to avoid that sort of stuff. But I do think that he's got some more. I think he's got some more left, because I think that Tom's one of those guys who I'm not going to leave any meat on the bone. I'm not going to leave any of this talent on the table. I'm going to use every last bit of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had another great season this year, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it started to go the other way, considering he'll be 45. So
yeah, I always wonder why, because like you said, like it takes something serious sometimes for them to know when to quit. But I don't know. It's like, don't you want to leave on a good note? Like last season was a great note, but for him, the best note would be to win another ring. And I get that. But Tom, how are you feeling about Tom next season?
Listen, I think last year was really the Bucks. Look, they had a lot of injuries on the defensive side, and I feel like had the Bucks won the Super Bowl, he would have happily retired. I think the fact that he went in and that
you think he would have quit?
Yeah. I think if they win the Super Bowl, because listen, don't forget, he's got his kids and his wife kind of being like, hey, like enough already, right? Like let's
I actually think it's the opposite, Tone. I think they were the ones who sent them back. Like, okay, you want to go play? Goodbye.
You might be right. It's like, come home. Come
home.
Actually, you know what? Maybe go back. Yeah. That also might be true. But I think like had they won, it would have been different. So the fact that he didn't play necessarily well, they lost. Listen, no one wants to admit this, but there was some friction. There was some friction between him and Bruce Arians. They keep saying there wasn't, but you know, my friend Coach Jackson always says to me, where there's smoke, there's smoke. He's right. And I'm just like, yeah, that's better. Where there's, because not necessarily fire, right? But where there's smoke, there's smoke. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, if everybody is reporting that him and Bruce Arians had issues, whether it be the fact that he had Antonio Brown staying at his house, Bruce Arians didn't want to sign Antonio Brown. Although they brought him a Super Bowl, he didn't want Antonio Brown there, and it was because of Tom Brady. And then when things went south with Brown, he not only blamed Brown, he blamed Brady. You brought him. If I invite someone, I'm going to Jay's house, and I'm like, Jay, I'm gonna bring my friend. I'm gonna bring my friend Bob, and he's like, yeah, okay, cool. I don't want Bob in my house. I'm like, no, he's cool. He's with me. All right, bring Bob, and I take Bob to Jay's house, and he makes a mess of his house. Of course, he's mad at Bob. That's why he didn't want him there in the first place. But he's also saying, yo, man, you brought Bob to my house, and look what he did. There is some of that responsibility is mine. So you hear those stories. You hear the fact that Bruce Arians, isn't maybe as light and fluffy as maybe we thought he was. And so I think he's had such a great career, and he doesn't want it to end with, oh, is it because of him and Arians, butting heads? They lost. I think he's also really enjoying. I think he's really enjoying it, because as a Patriots player, you have to be very, yes, I'm focused on the next game. Bring on the Bengals. Thank you very much. It's been very great playing. I'm just trying to do what I can to help my team. And now with the Bucks, he's like, yeah, man, let me do a podcast. Let me have a show. Check out TB12. Check out my play. Like he's having fun. I'm getting drunk and you got to carry me off the boat after the Super Bowl party. Like, he's enjoying his life. And so I'm like, hey, if he's having fun and he's performing at that level, why would he quit? Right? It's not work. It's work. But it's if it you know what they say, if you do what you love, it doesn't feel like work. Well, maybe that's where he is. So if you're asking the question, what do I think? I think that the Bucks have really improved their defense. I think that they're going to be great offensively. And look, Jay kind of alluded to it. When you looked at the NFC South, Carolina stinks, Atlanta stinks, New Orleans stinks. So he's like, hey, I got this. He's like, I got this division. I got this division on lock. Then I look at the NFC East. I ain't afraid of anybody in the NFC East. Then I look at the NFC North. I'm like, okay, well, Aaron Rodgers, but he just lost his best weapon. So I'm not that concerned. NFC West, well, Russell Wilson's gone. Trey Lance is probably starting for the 49ers, who knows what that's going to be like. The Seahawks stink. And I got the Super Bowl champs. So really, if I could be like one or two, if I can get by the Packers and the Rams, I'm probably at another Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm taking that.
Don't leave out Arizona. Don't leave out Arizona, who now they lost their. Hopkins is out.
Hopkins is out. And at the time that Brady kind of said, "I'm coming back," don't forget, Kyler Murray was saying, "I don't know if I want to be the quarterback. Like, I want a contract. I want this." So he sees all this turmoil. He's like, "It's not like it's the AFC. I don't have to deal with Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, and Devontae Adams, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert." Like, the list goes on and on. The AFC is I would, if I was a football player, I'd be like, trade me to the NFC right now. Let me get out of here. So yeah, I think he's gonna have a great shot. That's I'd come back to. So yeah, I think he's gonna do great. I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. I liked your point on now it might be the best time ever, and he's having fun. Although I do wonder. I mean, it's not like the Bucks didn't have turmoil last season. I know they definitely did. So we'll see how that all pans out. But Jay, what do you? I know there's some updates that came out about the Deshaun Watson case and all that's going on with that. And I don't know if you two have talked about it much on your lives. But what do you think about all of that? And do you think that the Browns are just going to cut ties from here on out, or do you think they're just going to wait it out to see?
Well, they can't cut ties simply because they already guaranteed them the deal. So we'll start there. And I think that they've done enough of their homework to know that this could only be, I think that this can only be tough for them publicly, right? So when I say that, I mean, you're looking at what Deshaun Watson is accused of. Once this thing goes away, what kind of hit are they going to take? Because there aren't any criminal charges against him. These are all lawsuits, which he says he doesn't want to settle out of court, which means to me that he absolutely wants to defend himself with this. So this thing could get ugly. And if it gets ugly, this could be bad. Not if it gets ugly, it could be bad for Cleveland publicly. I mean, I don't mean privately. I mean, publicly, this could be bad for them. Now, I think this is a situation that the Cleveland Browns really want this thing to go away because they're in the business of Deshaun Watson and they want this thing to go away and they can't wait for football season to start so this thing could be past them. Now, I think this is a lot worse than what is being let on. Now, and not only do I think it's a lot worse, I think it's going to get a lot uglier in the press. And I'm really interested to see how this whole thing unfolds and how it's going to get resolved. Because again, we're talking about, these are serious allegations. This isn't, we had a fight in the parking lot. No, we're talking about something serious here. And we need to get to the bottom of what it is. But I also look at what the Cleveland Browns did in terms of signing him. And I think that they got enough people to do their homework to know that, is this a battle that we can win? And I think that they're betting on the idea that it is.
There are so many layers to this story that one, I think every single person involved on every side, meaning the team, management, Deshaun, his lawyers, his team, the women, like Houston, every single person who's involved in this, everyone has handled this so poorly. So I'm not, listen, a minimum of 66 massages, okay, were set up by the Houston Texans in a private facility, in a private room for him, by the Houston Texans who set it up. Some of these masseurs went back multiple times. Like some of the 24 that are accusing him went back multiple times. So I'm going to ask you a question, Haley, and it's a sensitive question, so I apologize. But if you went into a situation and were treated the way they're accusing, would you go back?
No, absolutely. No, obviously not. And that's where
right.
these
So
are
that's
things. Yeah, no. And you want to take these people's words, and I always have doubt. I always try to like understand the situation. But here's the thing: it's 66 people now. Like there's truth
there's 60 there's 66 appointments at minimum, but 24 alleged,
but
24 civil lawsuits.
I see.
So here's the problem. You're gonna get at least one. I hate to use this person's name, but Amber Heard, who's just full of crap, right? And it's gonna hurt the other. Let's say it was one. It's gonna hurt the other 23 who actually have a legitimate problem. Yeah. The fact that Houston set this up for him, the fact that, listen, he's clearly got something wrong with him. Let's be like, he also needs some help. Like if there's that many instances where he's done something inappropriate, then clearly he needs help. So fast forward, look, that's all done. I don't know that we can do anything about it. That's done. So here's where we are. So Cleveland signs him to this huge guaranteed contract. Now, I hope there's some legal things in there that says if you get suspended, if you get this, if you get that, we're out. Because if they don't, they've massively screwed themselves.
Yes.
The fact that he doesn't want to settle and just pay people off, I get it. You want to prove your innocence because if you pay them off, you're just always going to be labeled as this guy. However, I'm going to keep the personal out for a second. Just football. From just football, if I'm Houston, Cleveland, and Deshaun Watson, we're saying, okay, how much money is this going to cost? We split it 3 ways, and everybody signs an NDA, non-disclosure agreement for those that don't know, and let's get on with football, because there isn't a price tag that you can put on this that isn't worth it so that they can get to football. That's from a football perspective. From a personal perspective, listen, even if half of this is true, he's probably out of the league forever, as he should be. If this is the big if, I'm always innocent until proven guilty, man. If he did this to that one person, let alone 12 or 24 or 66, I'm sorry. You had your chance and you screwed it up. You've lost your shot from a personal perspective.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. The fact that it's dragged on, like, what is almost 3 years now?
Well, you also got to remember too, Tone, we're talking about a situation where we have a number of different variables. This might not be everything that they're saying it is, right? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, these 24 victims, the thing that they're coming forth with what they're giving us. Well, it might not be everything that not only might it not be everything that they're saying it is, it might be some stuff that they don't want to come out neither. Then they're hoping that, can we settle this? Can we get to the bottom of this? So we all don't have to, because this isn't something that's just going to get ugly for him. This is going to get ugly for the Houston Texans. It's going to get ugly for Cleveland. This is going to get ugly for these victims. And are you prepared to take it there? And if you are, then let's do it. But if you're not, Deshaun Watson sounds like he's prepared to take it there. And it's going to get ugly. And if he's prepared to take it there, let's find out what this is really about.
Yeah, because I'm trying to see it from both sides. From their side, I went in to do this, and then he, when they say he made me do this, if he's got proof that they, said it's okay if you, listen, it's a happy ending. If you pay me this, I'll do it. Yeah. Well, he did something illegal. I don't know what the laws are in Texas, but then they're not going to get any money from a civil suit. because it's prostitution. You're gonna get charged too. So if there's proof, and maybe Deshaun knows that, maybe he goes, you accepted money to do this, so now you're just as fault as I am. I'm not paying you. I'm not going to pay you off. Like, that might be his stance. And their stance is, well, if I keep putting the pressure on, you have more to lose than I do, so I just want to get paid. So there's just so much stubbornness on both sides that.
But make no mistake about it, though, Tone. If he was foul in any way, let's get to the bottom of this.
Well,
that's the stance. That's the stance that I'm at more than anything, right? I know that this thing could get ugly. I do understand that, Tone. I very much know that this is gonna. But at the end of this, if he was foul, let's get to the bottom of that. Let's get to the bottom of how foul. Let's get to the bottom of how foul he was. We're up to 24 now, Tone.
But 22, the first 22, they've said there's no evidence to bring not enough evidence to bring criminal charges.
Right.
So that this is my thing, is that as a victim, I know that he's not going to jail no matter what I do now. There's no criminal charges. So the only thing I have is at least I can get some monetary compensation to try and help, with therapy. I know what they're going to do. They're going to go buy a car, but whatever. But for therapy, to move on, like, at least I feel like I got something, right? And it's not good enough, right? If it was my daughter, if it was my whatever, like, trust me, I'm killing them. But I didn't say that. Edit that, JD. But like, we get in a fight. The fact is that that's what you're going to get. You're going to get monetary compensation. So the fact that they're not just saying, let's just take the money and go, like, that's what, because there are no criminal, that's the tough part. And the NFL, I actually give the NFL a lot of credit in this regard. Normally they would say, oh, it's a 4-game suspension, but they're actually being patient. They're like, well, no, we're going to wait and see everything. And that's actually the right thing to do, because if they do a 4-game suspension, then they got to retract it or add to it or whatever. No, we're going to wait and see what happens, because that's, it all comes out and he's done nothing.
The last thing you want is a Ray Rice situation. You don't want that. You don't want that again.
Right.
You do not want that situation again. So once again, Tone, if this dude was foul, I want to get to the bottom of how foul he was, and let's deal with it. And if he wasn't, let's get to the bottom of it. Yes. But I'm thinking 24. I'm thinking 22, 24 women. There's something going on. Something. This isn't something that we can just go, yeah, well, maybe she was okay. No, we got 24 women that got a problem with what was going on. So let's get to the bottom of how foul this dude really was. If he is foul at all, let's get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I think we can, like, there's so many things we want to know, but hopefully the law does what it does and finds justice no matter what. It's just crazy, because I keep thinking, is this incident, and this is not the first and it won't be the last, but is this incident, is the league going to use him to set some kind of precedent? And is how much discipline is warranted in this situation? But we won't know until we know more details about what actually happened. But I just hope it gets figured out, and justice is found on everyone's part. And when you're in the media's eye, like, there's going to be people saying all kinds of things about you, things that aren't true and things that are, and so we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I do want to I know we're almost at the end of the pod for today, but I did want to take it back to the NBA finals real quick. Game 3 predictions really quick. What do you see happening in game 3 in Boston on the road?
Boston is, but they 6-0 after a loss, so ain't no reason for me to think that they come home and then they lay an egg. They 6-0 after a loss. Not only are they 6-0 after a loss, I think Jason Tatum averages 28 a game, and after they lose, so.
Okay, you got Boston.
Yeah.
What?
Haley? No, I want yours first.
Oh, dang. Well, I think that Boston will win game 3, but I do think that the Warriors will take the other game.
Well, we'll talk about that on Thursday. So great. Game 3. So you both have Boston in game 3?
I do.
Yeah.
I was really hoping you both were going to pick the Warriors again. You know what, Dad? I'm going to go Warriors by 12 in Boston. They're not ready.
Whoa. So if they win by 12, Tone, that means that they smoked these dudes.
Warriors.
That's what you basically telling me?
Warriors by 12.
So you got them smoking them in game 3. Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Warriors by 12.
Take
it.
We are gonna see the resurgence. This is gonna be game 6 Klay in game 3.
You think we're gonna see Klay come out in game 3?
Klay is gonna have some whatever the hell kind of food they have in Boston, some beans and franks, some lobsters, some whatever the heck they did. He's gonna do it the right way, and the Warriors are gonna take game 3, and it's gonna make everyone question. Here's what's gonna happen in the series. I'm gonna give you a precursor to what's gonna happen, and I better plug in my before my battery dies. Hold on. Don't die. There we go. Ooh, just in time.
Saved it.
Here's what's gonna happen. They're gonna win by 12, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, Warriors got you." You're gonna be very overconfident. You'll be like, "The Warriors got this." And I'm gonna give you a preview of what I'm gonna tell you on Thursday, which is the Celtics are gonna come back and smoke them in game 4. That's what's gonna. There it is, right there. So Warriors blow them out in game 3. You're gonna think Klay is back to old Klay. That's what's gonna happen. But I know that we're technically out of time, but I feel like we should go into overtime because we did have a really good topic that we did talk about. That we do. I want to address.
Yes, we do.
Can we address that?
Comparisons? Yeah, let's do it.
Well, we got the comparisons and we got the dynasty. So I don't know which. I think we can go through the comparisons kind of quick.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
And JD's in. He said, "OT, let's go." Yes, let's go into overtime.
Okay,
Start with the comparisons. Let's do rapid fire in the comparisons, and then let's do the Lakers versus Celtics dynasty. Let's do rapid fire in the comparisons.
Okay, rapid fire.
You know these comparisons? Did I send these to you, Jay?
No, you did.
Okay, good. It'll be a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have it on my phone. It's real small. You guys in the chat, you might have seen this on Twitter. It's floating around, but basically it's comparing kind of 5 greats of the NFL to 5 NBA greats, which are strange. Like, I'm curious to know what you guys think. So number 1 is Tom Brady and Bill Russell. Joe?
I'm gonna just go through. We're gonna do the 4, right? The top 4?
Yeah.
Okay, the top 4. So it's Brady, Russell. Let's just do all 4. Brady, Russell, Joe Montana, Michael Jordan, Walter Payton, Magic, Jerry Rice, LeBron. So we start with you. Yeah. So Brady, Russell.
I actually like Brady and was it Brady and Russell, and then
Brady,
Joe
Russell.
Joe Montana and Jordan.
Yeah.
I actually like Brady and I actually like that flipped around because the Brady Russell comparison. I mean, I can appreciate the longevity. I can definitely appreciate that. But when I look at Joe Montana and Jordan, I mean, they both undefeated in the finals. So, I mean, I think Joe Montana and Jordan are a good comparison. And Brady and Bill Russell, now that I think about it, those two are a good comparison because of the longevity. James and who was the other one with James?
Jerry Rice.
James and Jerry Rice, I can definitely get with that logic because of the longevity and how long Jerry Rice was dominant. Yes, I got no problem with that. Jerry Rice was absolutely awesome. I mean, Jerry Rice got a stretch where I think he's got like 18 seasons where he went 1,200 yards or more on average. Yeah, good luck doing that. Just like James, 18 straight years, 25 a game. So yeah, I can definitely get with that logic. And the other one was,
well, there's actually like 10 of them.
The 4 that we talked about though.
Yeah.
The
4 that we talked about. The 4, yeah, so it was well, the third one is Magic and Walter Payton.
Magic and Walter Payton. Well, I can't appreciate Magic and Walter Payton because Walter Payton didn't win nearly as much as Magic. And add that to the fact that Walter Payton, he was definitely more of not only a workhorse back, but his longevity. I mean, Walter Payton played 13 years. He only missed 3 games in 13 years. So Walter Payton was definitely, but he didn't win nearly as much as Magic. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl 1 time. I think that they were in the NFC Championship game in his 13 years. I think they were in the NFC Championship game twice. So that comparison is a little tricky for me.
I think
the one you think is the least comparable is Walter Payton and Magic. Yeah. That's your kind of standout one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That one's the tough one because listen, I'm a huge, you see the helmet, you see the jerseys. I'm a huge Bears fan, but and I'm a Laker fan, and Magic, it's so funny that was the comparison. I didn't do this. This was sent to it. Like, when I first started watching basketball, it was because of Magic Johnson. The first football game I ever saw in real life was a Bears game where I saw Walter Payton. And that's when I became a football fan and a Bears fan. So you got my two guys. So for me, Magic and Walter makes perfect sense. Like, they're the reason I love the teams that I love, and the reason I love these two sports. Other than that, though, their play is not, well, I guess you could say it was their play, but one had a great team, one had a really bad team. One went to the finals, won the MVP. The other did. That one is the least comparable. LeBron and Jerry Rice was an interesting one because my immediate reaction would be LeBron and Brady, right? Crazy longevity, breaking all the records, going to the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals, like almost more than anybody else. I think there's only 4 players in NBA history to go to double-digit NBA Finals, and 2 of them, Sam Jones and Bill Russell, were on the same team, right? So really, and Sam Jones isn't, like, he's good, but he's not an MVP. So really, of the MVP kind of caliber players, it was Russell, LeBron, and I'm missing the third one, but Kareem, that went to double-digit finals and were MVPs of the league. So that's why I think the Brady LeBron comparison. The Jordan and Montana makes sense but yeah, that one makes sense. They both went to they're undefeated in the finals. I think Jordan was a better basketball player than Montana. Montana was a football player, right? Like, we have Montana. Well, I guess he's still top 5. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think, maybe that one's fine. Yeah, I think that one's fine. Okay.
I was originally thinking of switching that with Brady, with Brady and Russell being Jordan and Brady, and then Russell and Montana. I was thinking about those guys because of not just the championships, but their consistency and how awesome they were for as long as they were. I know those other guys were consistent, but I think about
what if you had to pick? What if you had to pick the player? So keep Brady, Montana, Peyton, and Rice. Who would you put, of any player, not just the ones I mentioned, of any player, who would you put in those slots?
Brady, Montana. I'm good with Jerry Rice and James. I'm good with those two, simply because of the longevity and how long that they were dominant. And when people leave out the fact that Jerry Rice went to the Super Bowl 6 times. It wasn't like Jerry Rice was in the Super Bowl 2 or 3 times. He was in the Super Bowl, was it 5 times? 4 times. Let's see. He went 88, 89, 95, 4 times. I'm sorry, not 6 times. He went to the Super Bowl 4 times and lost with the Raiders. But, with that being said, he was dominant for a bunch of years, just like James was dominant for a bunch of years. And he lost just like James did, but he was also awesome when he was losing. So I'm good with that. When I think about Brady, I think more in the lines of Jordan than I do Bill Russell. And the reason why I look at Brady, because Brady is that guy who, he was that dude for a while, and then he had a gap where he wasn't. Kind of like Jordan was from like 84 to 90, and then he was that dude again. So I think about those two guys in that aspect, and then I look at Joe Montana, and I look at not Bill Russell, but I keep getting these guys mixed up. I'm sorry, I do. I keep getting these guys mixed up, but I'm not. So
let me throw a couple. Let me throw a couple at you. Tom Brady, Kareem.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
That's in me because went to the finals a bunch of times.
Yeah,
was the best player. Won more than he lost. Like, I think Brady's 7 of 9, if I'm correct. No, 7 of 10. Oh yeah, he won 10 times and he won 7. Kareem is
Jabbar,
6 of 10. And the other part is, look, Brady's great. Brady's the GOAT. Brady's the best. There's an argument to be made that Kareem's the GOAT of basketball. Correct. They both did it for like 20 years. And here's the thing. There were times in Brady's career for those Brady detractors who will say, well, it's because he had the #1 ranked defense in the league. It's because he had the best coach in the league. And what do people say about Kareem? Well, it's because he had Magic. It's because he had Pat Riley. It's because he had Big O in Milwaukee. So they both have that kind of, if you don't like them, you can make excuses for them. Montana, let me give you one more. I'm going to leave Montana alone. But I'll give you one more for Walter. Walter Payton, Wilt Chamberlain. You're wowed by their physicality. You're amazed by what they do on the court. Just didn't win enough.
Maybe Walter Payton and Malone.
But Malone didn't win any.
No, he didn't. He didn't win
any
NBA champ. But when I think
about Kawhi
Leonard,
Leonard, what about Kawhi Leonard?
Nah, because
he doesn't have
Walter Payton.
Because
only that, because Walter Payton wasn't the final ingredient. Walter Payton was one of the best running backs in the game for a long time. Leonard was good, but Walter Payton wasn't the final ingredient. He was the franchise player. I can't say Malone either, because Malone didn't.
How about this one? We got this one in the chat, and I like this one. Luka and Mahomes.
No, because Mahomes actually, when you talk about a talent standpoint, I'm good with that. I'm good from a talent standpoint, but I also see what Mahomes did. And Mahomes took the league by storm, man. He did. He took the league by storm. Nobody was really prepared for him. And he walked himself into a great situation. Luka's in a different situation in Dallas where they're trying to build that thing around him. That thing was already built around Pat Mahomes.
Well, it was already built. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I like that comparison. We should do this again, you guys in the chat. Leave us NBA and NFL comparisons, because this could be a good thing to add.
It. Yeah.
But I do have one more question. So I've seen this going around as well. There's been a dynasty between the Lakers and the Celtics. Are they tied right now?
Yep,
as far as
17,
all-time
17.
wins, right? Yes.
Yep.
So all-time 17-17. So I guess if Tatum wins this finals, or the whole team wins this finals and takes that lead 18-17, where do you think that leaves the Lakers? Because as far as we know, the Lakers are probably not going to see a ring in the near future, probably next few years. So what do you think that would do?
Don't switch your face up like that neither, Tone, because I don't know why.
The Lakers are winning a championship next year.
No, not a chance. I think the Hornets have more of a chance than the Lakers, to be honest.
Y'all looking real whack right now. Real whack. So, I'm sorry, Haley, as you were saying.
No, you're good. But what do you see for the Celtics if this can happen? And just the two dynasties, they've been at odds. So what do you see for them?
Well, I was just about to say that this thing, it's kind of split down the middle, because on the one hand, I could say that the Lakers have the most players in NBA history in the Hall of Fame. There's no other team that can say that they have more players in the Hall of Fame than the Lakers. But on the flip side, I could say that of those 17 banners that the Boston Celtics have, 7 of them came against the Lakers. So that's a little bit tricky. That might be a problem. Now, if they were to win this, now if you're talking about them just being head-to-head with the Lakers, I do think that this puts them ahead of the Lakers, simply because, number one, they beat the Lakers more times in the finals. That's number one. Number two, they have more championships. Now, the Lakers got better players, but what is this about? The Lakers organization and the Celtics organization. And what is defined by those two? Championships. Well, the Boston Celtics would have more championships at this particular time, so that would put them ahead.
Okay.
I feel like I know this is the second time you've said this. I should have looked it up. I feel like the Celtics have more Hall of Famers. Are we sure on that? We got to do a stat check. Are you sure? The Lakers, the Celtics. I thought the Celtics are one and the Lakers are two. I'm very happy if the Lakers are one and the Celtics are two. I love that. Here's the thing with these two incredible franchises. Listen, let's be real. No one is touching them. They are 1 and 2. I feel like Lakers, Celtics are like the way that I feel about Jordan, LeBron. It's 1, 2, and then it's everybody else. I don't care which one you have, 1 or 2.
I can get with that.
But it's 1, 2, and then the field. That's how I feel about it. Now, I'm a Lakers fan, so of course I'm gonna say the Lakers are the greatest franchise because 17 rings. Let's look at the Celtics 17 rings. They got 11 of them in like the span of like 1950 something to 1960.
Take off this objective hat for a second, please.
So they had this great run. Hold on. They had this great run of 10. And you mentioned it. 7 of them were against the Lakers. So 7 of those 10 times, the Lakers were the second best team in the league. If you look at the Lakers in terms of their greatness, They were the first team to three-peat. They're the only franchise to three-peat twice. So they did it.
Won the championship 8 years in a row, Tom. What are you talking about?
I know, but there's only 8 teams in the league. So they were the first three-peat with George Mikan. They three-peat again in 2 separate occasions. They're the only team to three-peat in 2 separate occasions. And if you look at it in modern history, so since like 1980 on, the Lakers have been the dominant franchise for the last 40 years, right? So although they won those 3 early, they weren't even in LA at the time. The recent history has been all Lakers. When you think of the great Celtic players, like the truly great players, like in your top 10, you have what? Bird and maybe Russell in your top 10.
Not maybe. Russell's 5, Bird is 7.
Russell's 11. So for me, so let's say, so you got 2 in the top 10, 11. Mm-hmm. When you think of your top 10, you've got Kareem, Magic, Kobe, Shaq in your top 10 or 11. There's 4 or 5. Chamberlain also was a Laker. Just the names, when you think of the greatest players of all time, they're Lakers more so than Celtics.
Which goes back to my original logic that they have the most players in the history of the NBA in the Hall of Fame. I'm not disputing that.
I'm not. Listen, I want you to be right. I want you to be.
But in the 60s, what I do know for a fact is that they beat the Lakers 6 times in the finals, just in the 60s alone. I do know that for a fact. All right. So with that being said, almost half. So we're talking about 17 NBA championship banners. Almost half of them came at the hands of the Los Angeles Lakers. Whether they did it 60 years ago, whether they did it 6 years ago, whether they had a lull and then the Lakers ended up doing what they were doing, that doesn't matter. We still, for a long time, if I'm a Boston Celtic, owned you guys. Still. Absolutely. So that's a fact.
For a decade, you owned us. But when I look at, and yes, in the chat, you are correct. The Bulls did three-peat twice as well. So the Bulls three-peated twice. The Lakers have three-peated twice. And then the Celtics, when they won 8 in a row, obviously three-peated in that 8-year span. Here's the thing. They had a great period of time. But when you look at the Lakers, they've had more teams in different eras win. So their longevity of championships is longer, right?
Is that a fact, Tom?
They've had more dynasties. They've had more dynasties.
Because when I think about the Lakers, when I think about the Celtics, they basically ran the 60s, right?
They ran the 60s.
Okay, the Lakers didn't win 1 championship in the 60s. Is that correct? Okay, so we get to the 70s. The Lakers win the NBA championship 1 time. The Celtics win the NBA championship 2 times. Is that correct? So we get to the 80s. The Celtics win the championship 3 times. The Lakers win the championship 5 times. We get to the 90s. We have nothing from both of those guys, correct?
But the Lakers did make the finals, but yes.
Yeah, they did make the finals. That's correct. So we get nothing from both of those guys.
We got a top 2 finish.
Okay, now we get to the 2000s, and Kobe and Shaq materialize into who those guys are. And they go to the NBA championship 7. Not just Kobe and Shaq, but the Lakers go to the NBA championship 7 times in that decade and win it 5, right? Yep. But they did lose to the Celtics 1 time during that time. The Celtics,
and that was the Celtics 1 chip.
And then they beat the Celtics. The Lakers came back and they beat the Celtics. Now here we are. Now we go from 2010 to 2020. The Lakers, I believe they had a stretch from 2013 where they didn't make the playoffs until 2019, until the 2020 season. Now, the Boston Celtics this is their 4th trip in the last 6 years to the Eastern Conference Championship. So they're actually building something. So there's an argument for both of those teams.
But the Lakers have won 1.
The Lakers have won 1. Yes, they did. And who's in the finals right now, since we're on that subject?
The Celtics, who I'm about to change my pick to the Warriors.
I just want to make sure. Another one. I just want to make. It's not like the lottery balls just got rolled out a couple of weeks ago, and the Celtics just lottery. No, what are we talking about here?
What we're talking about, if it wasn't for Kevin McHale giving Kevin Garnett to the Celtics, they don't get that 1 win over the Lakers. So what about that? Okay, if it wasn't for the NBA screwing the Lakers out of Chris Paul, we have another Laker dynasty with Kobe and Paul. Okay. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
I don't want to throw up on my camera.
I just want you to know.
Yeah. We're not gonna do what ifs or what ifs. Like we're here. It is what it is.
Whenever we start with the Lakers with this dude, I'm telling you, it's gonna make you nuts.
If just so you know, that trade was completed. If Chris Paul goes to the Lakers, it's Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant, and 2 more max contracts. Tell me they're not winning a bunch of chips. Come on, be honest. Be honest.
Well,
be honest.
Well, number one, we don't know that because we see who Chris Paul has materialized into. So there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be doing that in the playoffs with Kobe Bryant, who would be ridiculously hard on him. Add that to the fact that Kobe did break down. Now, Kobe broke down because he was carrying those other Laker teams.
That's
right. I think that he was carrying those other Laker teams? It wasn't because of him just getting old. I think it was a combination of him getting older and him carrying those Laker teams. All right, so got to take that into consideration. But that's also a what if. What actually did happen, though, Tone? Tell the viewers what actually did happen.
What did happen is you got damn Steve overrated Nash and Dwight. I want to smile more than I want to play basketball. Howard. That's what happened.
I don't know about overrated. How about just? I think he was over. How about that? When you got Steve Nash, he was old. I think he was 38 when y'all got him, something like that. 37.
Might as well been 58.
So
the way
Steve
that he played.
When y'all got Steve Nash, so it was like it was a situation where you got Steve Nash at 29, and he still had a bunch of years ahead of him.
Where I was about to say, where's my camera? Genie Bus, I know you're watching. Hire me. I'm better than Rob Pelinka. We'll get back to a dynasty. All right. So Lakers win. Do we get a final poll here? Lakers or Celtics greatest franchise in NBA history? If JD's probably asleep now. He's probably he's sleeping. Okay. So Lakers win. All right, let's take a vote. Greatest franchise in NBA history, Lakers or Celtics? Jay. You have to pick one.
As of right now, I think it's the Lakers.
Lakers. Haley.
I don't want to admit it, but I do agree. It's the Lakers for me.
There you go. Perfect sweep. And
as much
as
it pains me
there
to
is
say.
a poll. There's a poll, and just so you know, the Lakers 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I don't care that.
But it could all change in a matter of a week or two.
Well, in that case, let's go Warriors.
Okay.
I'd rather be wrong.
Nope. Can't change your pick.
No, I said I'm not changing my pick. I said I'd rather be wrong and let the Celtics lose.
Okay.
Do you guys know why? We'll end it on this. Do you guys know why I'm a Laker fan?
Because of Magic Johnson. You've told us this plenty of times.
No. But do you know how it happened?
No.
Have I told you this? So in those days, you didn't get a lot of basketball games televised, right? In Canada, I grew up obviously in Toronto, and so you only had, well, the best 2 teams obviously were the Lakers and the Celtics. So those were the only teams that you saw on TV. So you're either a Celtics fan or a Laker fan. You had a sprinkling of 76ers fans, but for the Toronto didn't have a team, right? So and I was like, I really don't like green, so I'm gonna start watching the Lakers.
Wow.
And then I saw Magic, and I was like, wow. And then
good choice.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that was a good choice, man. So it's just I don't like the color green. How was that? I was 6.
Oh.
And I just saw Magic do one of these. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in.
That's my team.
Yes.
And here you are.
I love it.
Oh
all
man.
right.
Well, Jay, you want to take it away?
Hey, take it light, but take it.
Warriors winning game 3.